the alignment phase, phase 2. The alignment phase says, little engine that could, we're tired of you, we've really got to get something done. And consequently, we're exhausted with transitions work, it was too broad in context, it was too narrow in age. That's another important point to note, that many of the historic transition efforts focused on linkages between 3 and 4-year-old children and schools, and did not embed any of our systemic thinking about the linkages that we've got to develop for at least at a minimum 0 to 8. So this alignment stage said we need something that is durable, that is transcendent. And indeed, at the same time, a lot of things were happening in the air. And I would date this around the early 2000s. The continuum of early education thinking was beginning to take hold. The standards movement was soaring. And one thing that I have to augment Karen's note. When I raised this before the NAYC board about standards, there was only one of it was the only vote that, as president, I lost. Karen remembers this. But there was only one person who voted for national standards at the time. So it was interesting how our thinking does and has changed. Having noted this, pardon me? Having noted this, we did have the Child Head Start Outcomes Framework, as it was called then. We did have state standards beginning to emerge early on in the areas of literacy, because that was what George Bush put in the Good Start, Grow Smart effort. But there was very little thinking about how any of this should align and come together. Very little study was done in Connecticut as a way of thinking about vertical and horizontal alignment. And back then, we used as our framework for thinking about alignment the National Education Goals Panel indicators in the 5 domains that have now become legion both domestically and internationally. And we looked at horizontal alignment. We took 4 committees and we looked first at pre-kindergarten and said, are the standards aligned with the curriculum, aligned with the assessments at pre-kindergarten and at kindergarten? Okay, so this was the structure of this. We looked at vertical alignment in the communities and said, are the standards aligned between pre-K and K? Is the curriculum aligned between pre-K and K? And are the assessments aligned between pre-K and K? To the best of my knowledge, this is the first analytic work that was actually done on alignment. And the results were pretty simple. We found actually that at the pre-kindergarten level, stuff was really pretty well aligned. And indeed, if you look at, the PAF stands for the Preschool Assessment Framework in Connecticut, CC is Creative Curriculum. If you looked at it, contrary to popular belief, a lot of the packaged curriculum, actually were better aligned with standards than what was happening when you had district developed curriculum. When you look, however, at kindergarten, we had a really big problem. Kindergarten was more of a mess than pre-K. Because in kindergarten, in that one of the 4 sites that we looked at, and Connecticut at that time, and still is a pretty progressive state, the standards were not aligned. The long bar indicates alignment. So the standards were not aligned in any one of these 4 randomly selected communities with curriculum and with assessment. Where the standards and curriculum were aligned in 2 of the communities, they were district developed. Okay? You get the picture that we have more alignment at pre-K, less alignment at kindergarten. And then when you began to look at the vertical alignment between pre-K and K, you found that we were completely out of whack. Just to spend a minute on interpreting these, the horizontal colored bars, each color refers to a different domain, approaches to learning, language, etc. The top bar in each set refers to pre-K, and the bottom bar to K, and the first set of bars are our standards. So if you just look at that top bar, you can see at kindergarten, the standards didn't even address one of the domains, and look at the heavy concentration in the red and the turquoise, which, as you might understand, was cognition and language development. The point of all this to say is early on we recognized that the alignment between what was going on at pre-K and K was pretty abysmal. We understood that at pre-K there was much more of a focus on the whole child, on all dimensions, and we also understood that we had a lot of work to do to bring this alignment at least around the pedagogy or the content of what kids were learning, needed to be brought into alignment. I would say that some of this work and this intentionality was fueled by the growth of Common Core, and it will be fueled by the emerging standards that are coming out in science and the ones that have just been developed in social studies. How many people are aware that we're getting standards K-12 in the United States coming down the road, very big, and that we have had one group, Castle in Chicago, that has developed social and emotional standards for K-12. So the point of all this is to say that I think that means we're having a little bit of impact because we're saying to the K-12 world, you need to look more broadly. On the other hand, how this is all going to be reconciled, how it's going to be reconciled with PARC and smarter balance assessments that are being developed is a very, very big question. All this is to say that the alignment work was really important and I think moved our thinking, but we recognized that it was not sufficient. And that moved us to where we are, I would say, in the most contemporary sense, the pre-K to third grade phase. And I would say that this phase is that we're growing up and we're growing out. We also have the benefit of two things. Number one, we have become much more efficient in how to package what we want and how to sell it to foundations, with all due respect to my foundation colleagues in the room. We have done a lot more thinking about systems work, and we understand that pedagogical alignment, as important as it is, needs to be broadened. I would say to you that the pre-K to 3 movement has now become, I think we can call it a national reform movement that is aimed to align children's early experiences, and it focuses on standards, curriculum, and instruction, having qualified teachers, looking at the guarantees or the rights that young children are entitled to, which at a minimum would be preschool and mandatory full-day kindergarten. And again, it looks at the transitions. We have recently, I believe this is dated, I think it was like literally 2 weeks ago, the NGA has just put out a major position paper, which I commend to everybody, on pre-K to third work. And it beckons us to look at leadership and governance, to look at learning standards, child assessments, accountability, teacher leader preparation, and resource allocation and reallocation. The point that I'm making here is, and I hope you're getting it, is that this is not really new stuff for our field. This has been on our agenda. It's being repackaged, fortunately, in a way that makes it more accessible. And I would say that to the degree that there is new stuff in here, it really focuses on working with school districts and principals as the unit of change. And that's important. It posits the need for qualified teachers, classrooms as appropriate learning environments for young children, and of course accountability to parents and to communities. I would say there are major challenges that the pre-K to 3 initiative is facing. One is that there are very limited funds for this. As robust as the foundation support has been to support TA, that the districts have relied on foundation funding, and nobody has to tell people in this room that funding is scarce, and that when states and school districts are cutting funds in general, they're hardly looking to expand more services to pre-kindergarten children and to extend the length of the kindergarten day. The second issue that we're facing is we don't have a strong evidentiary base on this. And I would submit that some research is really, really needed. You and I know that this makes a difference, but in order to convince folks that of the veracity of this investment, we need hardcore data. And I'm not seeing very good research that's emerging on this. And I would say the third problem is, and what I'm hoping to move to right now, is that there is not a consistent framework to understand what it is we really want to give and we really want to get in this linkage. To that end, did I do the history part okay? Are you all bored and falling asleep yet? Okay. To that end, what I really want to suggest is that we are at such a crucial time in this game that we need to begin to act with really serious intention. I get to work with many of you, and the one thing that I am, and I said it to someone this morning, colleague Alicia, where are you? I said to Alicia this morning, you know, for all the incredible work you're doing, for the incredible pressure, you look so rested and so beautiful. And I just want to say, I really do feel that way, that the people in this room are at the cutting edge of pressure and advancing the field. And so the goal of this part of what I want to talk about is to make your lives a little bit more easy and to not be so scattered, not have us all be so scattershot working on 800 million different things. I want a positive way to organize our efforts, to sequence our efforts, and to offer you a way to think about them. My bottom line is, I think we have nailed this issue about the linkages down theoretically. We have not nailed it empirically, which is why I'm calling for more research, and I definitely don't think we've nailed it down practically. So I'm going to move to that.